Hi, everybody. Sandy Kreisberg here. Fridays with Sandy. We've got a very exciting guest, Austin Hoyer. Austin, say hi.
Hey everybody.
Hi, Austin. Austin, you've got an interesting career in health management. Let's just run through it quickly. Tell me where you went to school and then just name the places you worked after that.
Sure. I was a chemistry major at Carleton College. Post grad, I went and worked with a professor on a company he was starting called Healthy Fire in Ethiopia. Then went and did a master's at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and Epidemiology. And then post master's, I worked at Johns Hopkins, and now I'm at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation.
Okay, so that's a lot of interesting stuff, and it's either a steak or a crazy salad. So you've got to turn it. Your job is to turn it into a steak, if you know what I mean. I mean, how could you thread that together? This guy has got an unconventional but very powerful career. Business schools love the intersection of healthcare. This guy has worked in Ethiopia. Business schools love Ethiopia. He's worked for government agencies. So he's got a lot of things going for him. We may have mentioned this or not. Some possible boo-boos are the metrics. You've got a GRE 328, which is a kind of 700 GMAT. Okay, now cover your ears, because here's the bad part. We got like a 3.2 undergrad and a 3.7 master's. Those are off prima facie, those are low numbers. Is there some way to put them in perspective? Like I understand Carleton is a tough grading school. Do you know your class standing?
I don't know my standards. Most of my GPA, the lower end is from my chemistry courses. I think if you subtract those out, it ends up being closer to like a 3.5, 3.6. So still not super high, but most of the lower, the B's came from chemistry, and most of the A's came in some of my other stats and humanities
Well,
courses.
be prepared to ask, that being the case, why did you major in chemistry?
I was interested. I also liked the challenge. I did a lot of analytical chemistry work, and it combined a lot of the science, hard science I liked, with the math and stats.
Okay, now you've got some very powerful stuff. Captain of the varsity baseball team. Business schools love that. Does Carleton have a serious baseball team, or is it just a bunch of guys getting together in some C or D league?
So it's Division III. So not a big SEC school or anything, but definitely more of the academic focused school. But we were decent at baseball.
Well, here's a question: what kind of captain were you? What was your philosophy? What did you do, and what kind of captain were you? They ask questions. This is a classic business school interview question.
Yeah, I'm a big lead by example type of leader. I think you can go and say all you want and try to pump people up, but it ultimately comes down to how hard you work. So I always try to be the hardest working person on the team, and just set a good example for.
Okay, I've said this 147 times. There's an answer to this question, and you need some version of it. Okay, the answer is, what I tried to do was lead people in different ways. I tried to figure out what they needed, and I tried to give it to them. And then let me give you two examples and see if you could do that.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
I think a big part of coming to Carleton and playing a sport is you have to balance the academics with a pretty significant commitment to baseball. So I always offered myself as a resource to people who are coming in, the freshmen, and said, if you're struggling with classes or you need a little help with something, I can.
Yeah, you're given a kind of a presidential debate answer. The question is, name two people. You don't have to name them, but you go, well, there was a guy named Pete, and what he needed was this, and what I did was this. And then there was another guy on the team named Joe, and what Joe needed was this, and here's how I handled that. You got it.
Yeah, I think we had a freshman come in my junior year who I think he was struggling to balance academics and the baseball, and it kind of led to him not really being present at our baseball practices. So I pulled him aside and just talked to him and said, hey, what's going on? how can I be, help to you? And we kind of just talked it out, and we're kind of person to person, and helped him kind of figure out a better path to navigating baseball and his academics at Carleton.
If you don't mind, what did you what did you tell him to do?
I said, you got to have your academics come first. Like, obviously we're baseball, we're teammates and we want to win, but you're here to do school. And that means you need to go talk to your professors if you're struggling with the class. There's upperclassmen in your major who can be a resource. I know a lot of them. Like, I'm happy to connect you and kind of put
those
you.
those are the good. That's the real meat of the answer.
Okay.
Good. Business schools are going to like that. They like captains of teams, but they want to know what your leadership style was. They want to know examples of that. They want to know what you've learned. We're not going to go through this now, but all you folks out there, be prepared for this question. How would you do things differently today, knowing what you know now, if you went back in time and led the team? You finished the BA in June of 2019, and then what did you do?
July, I moved to Ethiopia and was there up until COVID ramped up in April of 2020.
Okay, so the year after college, give me the official spiel. Hey, Austin, what'd you do the year after college? You got to be able to say this. Didn't you work with a professor?
Yeah, so I worked with a professor who was aiming to start a company that introduced clean burning cook stoves in Ethiopia. So most people in Ethiopia use a charcoal stove inside their house to cook. So obviously bad for your health, not great for the environment.
Yeah, so what was his plan and what did you do for him? This is fascinating. Your whole interview could be on this if they ever landed on it.
Yeah, my role was twofold. So one was to use my chemistry background and figure out how can we make a stove that burns cleaner. And a lot of that was emissions testing, combustion testing, testing what people are using, and then testing options.
Were you able to accomplish much there? Isn't the charcoal stove been around a while?
It has, and it's a tough thing to get people to move away from. But we did have, I think by the time I left, roughly 100 people using a new improved stove, and had a bunch of really positive reviews, which was also part of my role, was getting actual feedback from people.
Okay, now I still don't fully understand what happened. You went to Ethiopia with a professor. Did he have a grant or something?
Yeah, he had a bunch of grants. He's also from Ethiopia originally, so he had connections with like the Ethiopian.
Okay, and his mission was to come up with an improved cooking device or to improve an existing device?
To come up with an improved cooking device.
And what was the outcome? Was he able to succeed, and what role did you play?
Yeah, so the outcome, it's still going on. I'm not involved with it anymore, but he got some grant money to basically build up a manufacturing plant in the capital city and actually manufacture the stove and the fuel for it there. So that's ongoing, and I know he's in schools now. Still a bunch of people are using it around the city. It's a tough thing, like we said, to get people to change, but it's definitely moving in a positive direction, last I had heard.
Yeah, okay, that's a great story. Be prepared to tell that story as part of your essays, as part of your interviews. If it ever comes up, you really have to be able to deliver on that. Like, I know it, I lived it, I was really passionate about it. Here's how it started, here's how it stopped. Now you're interested in a number of schools, and you're interested in Ross, Fuqua, Kellogg, Wharton, Booth, Keenan, Flagler. So the essays are all a little different, but this is something you should be able to answer. Give me a roadmap of what you want to do after you graduate business school.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, my background is academia and taking a large amount of health data, making sense of it. But it's
what job would you want after you graduate business?
I'm interested two different paths. One would be consulting, maybe life sciences or healthcare, something like ZS, or just general management consulting.
Okay, that's good. What you should say is it's two paths. One would be consulting, and I'd be interested in healthcare consulting. The leading players in that are the branch of McKinsey that does that, specialist firms like I'm making this up, but you get the idea.
Right. Yep.
You should have that under control. What if you don't do consulting? What would be another good first job?
The other would be a leadership development program, somewhere like pharma or like a payer provider. I know it's a pretty common route for MBAs to do like a rotational program. So
rotational leadership program.
Correct. Yep.
And you should do a little homework on that. Another opportunity would be a rotational leadership company, particularly a big pharma. Pfizer has a terrific program, and so does X, and so does Y.
Yeah. And I think that'd be a good fit with the chemistry background too, just given that pharma and chemistry are pretty closely related.
Sure. Okay. So then after the rotational leadership program, you would then get into that company's uh, employment hierarchy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like in a idea like a C-suite in the long term, but definitely
Yeah,
late on.
sure. Everybody wants a C-suite in the long term. But what would you do after the rotational leadership program? What I would do is I try and either wiggle my way or charm my way or earn my way into the part of the rotational leadership program that deals with this, because there's different aspects of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I've definitely spent more time thinking about the consulting and like the long term with that, because I think the long term goal with consulting would be work at a place like Gates Foundation doing their strategy, which I know they have a lot of people who do BCG, McKinsey, and then go and work in strategy and have MBAs.
Yeah. So one roadmap for me would be to just work at the standard, brand name consulting companies like BCG, McKinsey, and those companies themselves often feed into. They have their own divisions that concentrate on pharma. I got that right?
Yeah, and I've spoken with people at McKinsey, BCG who do exactly that. They have, MBAs in healthcare focus or PhDs in epidemiology and work on healthcare problems at those firms.
So the intersection of a PhD, an MBA, and a leading consulting company in healthcare, that's an exciting space, and it's a big space. That could be one roadmap for me.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then come up with is there another possible plan? Join the company directly, rotational leadership, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my understanding, going directly to the rotational leadership is more common than just going to like the, corporate office of like a pharma company. It seems like leadership development program is the standard next step. And then the actual, working within their corporate office is kind of the post.
Yeah, okay. Do a little homework on that. I mean, you should want to. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, do a little research. Hey, as I'm sure you know, 40 minutes on Google is the difference between night and day, and night and day, and in this part, it's stuff you want to know. Good. Boy, could you tell me about these publications? I mean, these are high-class like the Lancet, like that is one of the most prestigious medical journals, right?
Correct. Yeah. Lancet. My plan is to apply next fall, and I should have hopefully one in Nature Medicine before then. So I should have most of the big journals covered. No first authors, which is a goal of mine in the next year. But
well, it's very hard to be a first author at a magazine, at a journal like that. I mean, the first author is usually a named academic, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't apologize for that. What did you do? I may have asked this, I'm sorry. What did you do at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine? Boy.
Yeah, I got my master's in epidemiology. So basically the statistics behind health. Whenever you hear someone say, oh, smoking increases your chance of lung cancer by X%, those are epidemiologists who do that. So it's kind of a combination of coding and statistics and then like a little bit of clinical health kind of all wrapped into one.
Good. Well, that's a logical outcome of your background. When did you start changing your goals into something more general business?
Yeah, I think my background, like you said, is taking data, making sense of it. But it's not, academics aren't the one who are actually implementing the programs. They're obviously using the research base to guide their strategy. But but I'd like to move to that side of the equation and actually be coming up with the strategies for a healthcare provider or a pharma company or a place like Gates
Yeah,
Foundation.
this is something you need to have as a kind of a whatever they call that in debating. Like you've got to have this ready. What I want to do is transfer from the numerical part of healthcare management to the person to person part, or whatever a better version of that is.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The business side of healthcare is what I'm
Yeah,
ultimately.
I want to transfer to the business of healthcare,
Correct. Yeah.
and then it's helpful for you and everybody else to follow that up with, some heroes of mine or some role models of mine are okay. So here's a question you should be able to answer. Name someone who's two questions. Name someone who's Name someone who has a job now that you would like at the height of your career.
One person would be Mark Sussman. He's the CEO of the Gates Foundation. So he manages all of their philanthropy and their strategy, and basically directs which direction the foundation goes, obviously in consultation with Bill and Melinda Gates. But
does he have an MBA?
I don't believe so. I think he has a PhD in like international relations, I believe.
Yeah, that doesn't negate him as a good choice. Just
I
being
know.
able to, what I like about him is this, and this.
Right.
You should have you should prepare three people who are role models.
And I know there are senior people at Gates Foundation who are MBAs, so I'll definitely look into them and kind of have them on the back burner.
This is for my own enlightenment. Can you name a company like the Gates Foundation that you'd be interested in working for? Everybody keeps talking about the Gates Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are foundations. I know Rockefeller Foundation does a lot of health work. Clinton
Yeah,
Foundation.
that's good because people, you don't hear much. Whoever is in charge of public relations for the Rockefeller Foundation, I don't know, buddy. I just don't hear about it much anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a pretty good brand. So that's good. So what can you name another one?
Clinton Health Access Initiative, CHI. They do a lot of international health work as well.
Is that Bill Clinton behind that in some way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That would also be worth, once again, another 20 minutes on Wikipedia. Okay, let me get this straight. Tell me about the 3-2 undergraduate. That's the real boo-boo here.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, take out the chemistry courses and it's closer to like a 3.5, 3.6. And like you said, Carleton's a tough grader, but overall, not as high as I'd like it to be, but I'm hoping that the GRE, considering it's higher than the median at all the schools I'm interested in, kind of offsets that.
Schools are interested in the GRE, I'm sorry, in the GPA for a number of reasons. For both the ranking magazines count it, and they also view a high GPA as having several qualities that they deeply admire. I've done this joke before, but you can do me a favor and laugh, okay? Schools like a high GPA because it proves that you could sit still, that you could eat shit, and that you could spit it back. And they value all those qualities tremendously. So in explaining a low GPA, one good way to do it is to say, it took me a while to find myself. And once I did it go up in the last 2 years? Is there any mitigating facts here?
Not necessarily because I switched to chemistry kind of later on, and those were the tougher classes I took in the last year 3 and year 4. So it stayed relatively constant throughout.
Okay. It's not a reflection of how I will do at your prestigious business school. It took me a while to find myself. The chemistry, Colton is a hard grading school. Chemistry is a hard grading major. Not making excuses, but well, I'm making excuses, but I think they're valid. And I don't think the GPA is going to be a problem at your esteemed business school because I'm very focused on what I want and I know what I want. And to be quite honest, a lot more mature now than I was. Okay. You have to take the standardized test again because yours is more than 5 years, right?
Correct. Yep. I took it about 5.5 years ago, and the 328 was the score I got on that one.
All right. I'm doing where I think what's going to happen here. Man, if you could get that to a 720, 730 GMAT equivalent, and then do a real tear-jerking job about a valid one about your master's scores are more typical as a GPA than your undergrad. You could do a Hail Mary at Harvard.
Okay.
Why not? You know, by the time you do all those other applications, it's all, you know. I think you're hard to predict because it depends on if you get a reader who really believes in statistics versus experience. And those people do exist. Okay. Man, you're a Kellogg type, you're a Fuqua type, you're a Ross type. I think Harvard would be whatever they call that, you know, like a super reach. I think Wharton is kind of where you belong. Don't they have a big What's that?
I live in Philadelphia too, so I'd love to stay here if possible.
Good. And I think you should get into Keenan Flagler. Booth is hard to predict, but you're their type. So my advice to you is internalize the touchy-feely stuff we've gone through in the last 40 minutes. And man, if you could get the standardized test score up, you'd really be doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, you got a lot going for you. I think you should get into these schools. Yeah, I think Wharton is I think you should get interviewed at Wharton, and then you've got to go through a whole other rigmarole. I think you're strong at the other places. I think Ross and Fuqua would really like you. You're a Kellogg type. You're in good shape, and you know, give Harvard a Hail Mary. That's the term.
All right, I'll add to the list then.
Think about Hail Mary. Think about Harvard as a Hail Mary. Okay.
Gotcha. All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, Austin. Good talking to you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Signing off.